What are the 10 cards that should have been secret rares but didn't make the cut? Let's discuss right now. Hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome back to the Parkside Merchant channel. I've got kind of a special video today where I wanted to talk a bit about secret rares and several cards that, in my opinion, would have been very good candidates for the secret rares of the first 11 sets. One of the things that's always been mysterious to me about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is how Konami decided which cards would be the secret rares, which ones would be the ultra rares, super rares, rares, and commons. But specifically the secret rares, right? It's 2 cards out of each of these sets that got chosen for that very special designation, very special, very decorative artwork. And they're just very unusual, right? There are not a lot of those from the original sets. Obviously, there's 2 coming out of each of the original sets. So it was probably a tough decision for them to make about which cards would make the cut, basically, for the secret rares in each set. So I wanted to share some of my personal opinion about several cards that I think are major contenders, like serious candidates for what probably were considered, at the time, good, strong contenders for the secret rares, if you will. I'm pretty confident that at the time, all the cards that I'm going to show here were at least probably considered for very high rarity. Many of these cards are ultra rares, so they probably were, the folks that were at the table making these decisions were probably just, it was a swing thought, right? It's going to be this card or that card. So that's basically what I wanted to go through today. I should say as well that I did not rank these cards, like in terms of level of importance or level of interest, I suppose. I just kind of went in rough sequence of the sets and flagged a couple of cards from each of the sets that I thought deserved to be secret rare candidates, if you will. So let's start with the first card, and then you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about. So obviously from LOB, right, you had a couple of secret rares that are pretty popular, right? Everybody's familiar now with Gaia, right? And you've got the Tri-Horn Dragon as well. So there's kind of some cards that are kind of burned into people's memories as the secret rares from this set. But in my opinion, the set is called Legend of Blue Eyes, and it's like the cover card on the box. So it does stand to reason that, like, maybe there would be some good reason to make this the secret rare, like the big time chase card from the box. Now, I know, everybody's going to say, well, they typically use ultra rares on the cover cards of the boxes. Not always true, I don't think, but a lot of times it is an ultra rare on the cover of a box. And people will say, well, this would make it harder for kids to find in LOB Blue Eyes. So yeah, it probably would have at the time made the Blue Eyes a much harder card to get. But I'm telling you, like, if the set is called The Legend of Blue Eyes, they probably should have made this a secret rare. And I can only imagine what this thing would be worth in secret rare, right? There's a big pop of these things on PSA because as an ultra rare, right, there are a lot of those cards that exist. But the secret rares, when we're talking about like 1 a box, if that, if you're lucky, right? I mean, I don't know, just my opinion, but it seems like this card would have been a very good candidate to make a secret rare from the LOB set, in my opinion. I think an equal contender from LOB that could have been a secret rare would be the Exodia Head from LOB, which is an ultra rare, right, in the way that it was printed originally, but it also kind of the same rationale, right? It's like the Blue Eyes White Dragon and the Exodia Head are much more historically and culturally significant cards in the lore of Yu-Gi-Oh! Than Gaia the Dragon Champion and, the Tri-Horned Dragon, right, from the set. So it just kind of seems to me like, especially with the Exodia parts, if there was one piece of Exodia that was secret and the rest were ultra, it would make it really, really hard, right, to assemble all 5 of those pieces, even harder than how it currently or it was at the time. So, and this would have made the head indisputably the best card from the Exodia set. But what's happened these days, I think it's the left foot, right? That's the most difficult one to grade PSA 10 for whatever reason. A lot of those must have gotten destroyed, or maybe they were less printed, who knows. But it would stand to reason that the head of Exodia should be the rarest, biggest chase card of the Exodia pieces, which I guess it kind of is in the way that it's printed, but to me it's like the Blue Eyes and the Exodia Head. These are obviously secret rare level cards. I mean, even back in the day, these were the chase cards in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! It was like if you had the Exodia pieces and you had a bunch of Blue Eyes from the first couple sets, I mean, those were the big cards, right? Then you had the God cards a little bit later, but like Exodia, the Blue Eyes, and I guess to a lesser extent the Dark Magician, and a couple of the other Dragon cards were like very popular. But Exodia and the Blue Eyes are like the biggest cards of Yu-Gi-Oh! And they have been since the first episode of the series. So seems like kind of a big miss, in my opinion, that Konami didn't make these the secrets, like the big-time chase cards. So let's move on to Metal Raiders. For those of you that follow my channel, you know that I am a very big proponent of the Garnicia Elephantis card. I'm going to put a link to the video that I've done on this card separately onto here so that folks can look into this card in more detail. It's actually one of the best videos, in my opinion, that I've made on the channel. I put a lot of thought and a lot of research into that previous video about this card, so I do recommend you give that a watch if you haven't seen it yet. But I think the long story short with this card is that Garnicia Elephantis is an artifact of Metal Raiders. This is the only set that this card ever has been printed in, and it's very nostalgic, right? It's from that original duel where Bandit Keith got defeated by Pegasus in like the World Championship dueling match, and the card was never used at all in the entire series after that one episode, which was a flashback about that duel between Bandit Keith and Pegasus. And it's just to me a very nostalgic, very like historically interesting and significant kind of oddity, if you will. And let's get right down to it, right? If Gate Guardian can make the cut to be a secret rare, and that card is kind of gimmicky, right? It was only used in that one big duel with the Paradox brothers against Joey and Yugi. So it's not like a secret rare has to be played a lot in the series. It's not that it even has to be that playable of a card, which Garnicia Elephantis is arguably not that useful or interesting, but to me, it's the kind of card that would make a perfect candidate for a secret rare. And it wouldn't shock me if there were some debate at Konami about whether to toss this into the mix as a secret rare candidate, to be totally frank. Just because it seems to me like it's that significant in the history and in the lore of Yu-Gi-Oh! That it probably could have been a viable candidate for secret rare in this series, or in this set. So when it comes to Pharaohs Servant, in my opinion, Thousand Eyes Restrict is a very, very strong contender for a secret rare from this set. Obviously, Jinzo, I think that's appropriate. That was a good call, that card was the secret from this set. But to me, it seems like Thousand Eyes Restrict is just as significant of a card. It's a villain card from Pegasus. It was only used once in the series there in that epic duel between Yugi and Pegasus. This is kind of the extra iteration of rarity, right, over the Relinquished card. So there's like a lot going for this card, in my opinion. And it would have made a really good secret rare from this set, I think. Imperial Order, right, is the other secret, I think, from the set. That's a fine choice, I suppose, but in my opinion, Jinzo and Thousand Eyes Restrict, that would have been a very, very powerful pair of secret rares, in my opinion, for this set. But I totally sympathize with the Jinzo card. I think that was a good call. I don't object to that being a secret, but I think this probably deserved to be up there as a secret rare card as well. Okay, let's move on now to Labyrinth of Nightmare. I have two cards from this set that I think could have been very good candidates for the secret rare. The first is the Masked Beast, right? This was from another pair duel or double duel. And if you think about previous secret rares like the Gate Guardian, which was the ace card of the Paradox brothers, the very first big-time double duel that we saw from Season 1, when there was another big double duel in Season 2, the Battle City season, between, I think it was Loomis and Umbra, the two rare hunters that dueled against Yugi and Kaiba. This was their big monster. This was their big, like, ace card in that match. And so to me, it seems like this would have been an obvious candidate for a secret rare. Very high stats. It's a villain card. And it was only used like once in the series. That's the kind of thing that is a really good fit, in my opinion, for a secret. I know the Gemini Elf, the Magic Cylinder, those have their fans, right? Some people really like those cards as secrets, but to me, this feels like it could have been right up there with the Gemini Elf or the Magic Cylinder as a secret rare card, in my opinion. So, very fun card, very cool, very creepy, very dark, and very unusual, right? It's a one-time card, I think, that was used in that big match. Didn't really get a lot of airtime after that. Okay, this next one is going to be very controversial. I can hear people already disagreeing with how silly this argument might be, but in my opinion, I think St. Joan would have been a very strong contender as the secret rare from the Labyrinth of Nightmare set. Now, hear me out, right? A lot of folks look at this card and they're like, it's a common, wasn't really that good, right? But in my opinion, like, and maybe I should do a separate video on this because I have a lot of thoughts on this particular card. This card was basically the ace card that Serenity Wheeler used in that very, very entertaining duel. It was a 3 versus 1 against one of those Big Five members. I think it was their chief engineer who had a bunch of the robot cards. And to me, this card, if Marie the Fallen One, which is one of its components, gets to have the rare designation, then the fusion combo for St. Joan needs to be at least like a super rare or higher, in my opinion. And this is the kind of card, right, that showed up once. It's only really been printed, I think, in the Labyrinth of Nightmare set. There might be one other set that I think this was reprinted in, but it's not a card that you see a ton of. And Yugioh has always had kind of a gender balance issue as well, right, where a lot of the heavy-hitting cards, a lot of the big monsters are male gendered, right, or they're male cards. And so having another card like a Dark Magician Girl, right, or an Injection Fairy Lily, I think helps to kind of balance out the mix a little bit when it comes to the distribution and gender parity among some of the major cards. So to me, there's just like a lot of reasons why I feel like this card deserved a higher rarity than what it got. The stats, they're not fantastic, but they're not terrible. And it's a fusion combo that was very iconic in the original series. And to me, it's just as interesting as a Gate Guardian or a Tri-Horned Dragon or some of the other stuff that gets given the secret rarity in some of these sets. I think this card would have looked really good as a secret, and I think there's a very clear argument and a good story for why this should have maybe had a secret rare designation, in my opinion. Next up, I wanted to talk a bit about Legacy of Darkness. This is actually one of those sets where, when I reviewed the whole list of the cards, I actually kind of agree that the Fairy Lily and the Yatagarasu are pretty good picks for the secret rare here. There's a couple cards that I have maybe a stronger affinity toward, but not a bad pairing there, in my opinion, with the Fairy Lily and Yatagarasu. I think next in line is probably the Tyrant Dragon that I think would have made a very good secret rare. Very high stats, another villain card that I think was used by Rex Raptor, the dinosaur guy, during Season 3, I think is when this thing appeared, maybe Season 4. But in any case, another very good card, and I think a card that probably deserved maybe a secret rare consideration for this set. If Yatagarasu is good enough for a secret rare, then this is probably also good enough for a secret rare, in my opinion. It's got a lot of the raw ingredients that you would expect for a secret rare. Villain card, used once or twice, very high stats, and just a cool looking card that would have had a real good look to it with the secret rare foil, in my opinion. So next up, we're going to move on to Magician's Force. This one, in my opinion, this set, I'm not a huge fan. I like the Dark Magician Girl as a secret rare, but the Diffusion Wave Motion, not a big fan of that secret. I think that there were a lot of other cards in this set that would have been good candidates for secrets. Not the least of which is the XYZ Dragon Cannon, right? This was a big Kaiba card, I believe, during the Battle City tournament and one of the final showdowns of that tournament. So, and it did later get printed as a secret rare in, I think, the booster pack tins, the BPT. So this one, to me, kind of seems like an obvious contender for a secret rare, in my opinion. Same drill kind of goes for the Dark Paladin. The Dark Paladin here is another card, very high stat. I think it would have made a great pairing with the Dark Magician Girl and the Dark Paladin as the two secret rares from the set. This is a card, I think it was kind of a big miss, frankly, by Konami that the Diffusion Wave Motion was given the secret rarity. I think the Dark Paladin or the XYZ Dragon Cannon would have made much more attractive secret rare candidates. The artwork obviously would look really good, and there's a good story behind it because there's a lot of historical and cultural significance around those cards. Okay, next up, we're going to look at Dark Crisis. So I have 2 cards here. I don't think any of these will surprise anyone. This is a set that, in my opinion, has a pretty weak pair, right? I think it's the Vampire Lord, right, and the Judgment of Anubis. I don't know. I'm just not super thrilled by those 2 secret rares. I think the 2 cards that would have made excellent candidates for secret rare would have been Shinado. Obviously, this is a big, probably the ace card for Noah. You could argue that maybe Yatagarasu or the Yamada Dragon or some of the other things that he uses are his ace card, but this was like his big monster, right? He also has that Arc card, right? There's a whole bunch of different things that he uses that are like the big monsters or his big cards, but this one, I mean, huge stats. It's a villain card. It was used like once in the series. It's got all the elements that are necessary for a good secret rare. Same can be said for Exodia Necros, in my opinion. This was the Gozaburo Kaiba ace card. Very dramatic duel there at the end of Season 3. This is the kind of card that I think should have been a secret rare. And I know both of these made a pretty good degree of rarity. I think this was an Ultra, right? And so was Exodia Necros, so not a lot that you can say, right? I mean, that's great. They got a high rarity, but even better if these 2 cards were the secrets from the set, because the Vampire Lord, the Judgment of Anubis, I mean, I'm just not a huge fan of those cards as secret rares. These 2 things would have been fabulous choices as a secret rare for that set. So that's all, everybody. Just wanted to do kind of a quick video and talk a bit about cards that I think would have been very strong candidates for the secret rare designation in the first 11 sets. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think about these cards that I selected? Which ones did you agree with or disagree with? What did I miss? What kind of cards do you think from the 11 sets would have been good contenders for secret rare? Let me know down below. So once again, this is the Parkside Merchant channel. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.